Hey everyone, welcome back to In the Alley. My name is Cody. Glad you guys are back for another video. We got 6 games on the docket for Saturday, week 14 in the Indoor Football League. As always, our timestamps are down below. Let's get into it. First game, Massachusetts, San Antonio. All right, so preview number 1. 6:05 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV, live from the Tsongas Center in Lowell, Massachusetts. The 5-5 San Antonio Gunslingers traveling northeast to take on the 6-5 Massachusetts Pirates. This is a huge game for playoff implications. Both teams need this win. We'll talk about that more in depth in a second. Let's take a look at our statistical leaders. Sam Castronova for San Antonio, leading rushing and passing as he has done practically all season. 53 passing touchdowns to just 3 interceptions is just an insane stat. He still has 6 games left to play. Some records are going to be broken. If not, he's going to come close. I mean, it's just insane to think that he has been doing all of this all season. Naquan Murray takes over as the leading receiver. It was DJ Myers for the last couple of weeks. I think maybe all season, I'm not sure, but regardless, Naquan Murray over 500 receiving yards. I'm pretty sure, looking at the stats when I did this, all 3, maybe 4 wide receivers, Upshaw, Murray, Myers, and Rashad, all have 400 plus yards, give or take, of receiving. So he's spreading the ball around. Castronova is getting into the wide receivers as he can. It's what they do on offense. Harold Love, Ricky Wyatt, Giovanni Sanders lead statistically for their defensive positions. On the Massachusetts side, Alejandro Benefield, Jimmy Robinson, and Teo Redding lead for their respective sides on the Pirates. Guy Thomas, Calvin Bundage, and Devin Hafford lead defensively for the Pirates on their positional side. Now, this is going to be a fun game. We'll talk about players to watch one sec, but for both these teams, Massachusetts is in a spot right now in the 3rd seed in the East. San Antonio, half a game back from them, although in a different conference. They are out of the playoff picture. They are 3rd from the bottom when it comes to the West. They need this win more than Massachusetts. Now, that's not to say Massachusetts doesn't need this win. They need it to keep pace with Frisco. Green Bay has already clinched a playoff spot. They've got Quad City nipping at their heels. Not San Antonio. Massachusetts needs this one to kind of stay in that 3rd spot, have a position to challenge for the 2nd seed. We'll see how it goes. San Antonio absolutely needs this one. If they drop this one, I'm not saying their playoff chances are dashed, but we got a big old matchup that we'll talk about, Northern Arizona and Arizona. That has huge implications. San Diego has huge implications. So this game means a lot to the Gunslingers. How can we rectify this? Let's talk about players to watch. Naquan Murray, 9 catches, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, we need this offense for San Antonio to just keep doing what they're doing. The biggest question is going to be here, can the defense step up and stop Massachusetts? Kevin Voiles has an opportunity to do that. 4 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. Now, he did get banged up a little bit in that game against Duke City. I believe he did come back and play after getting that, so I think he should be all right to play. But it's going to be that defense. Can they stop running back Jimmy Robinson? Almost said Washington. Jimmy Robinson, 15 rushes, 79 yards, 1 touchdown. 5 catches, 34 yards, no touchdowns through the air. So it's going to be a matchup of how good does Massachusetts offense look, because sometimes they've looked really good. Other times they have looked trash. And can this defensive line with Kevin Voiles, Harold Love, can they put pressure on Benefield? Can they stop the running game? Jimmy Robinson, I believe, is the leading rusher when it comes to running backs, or maybe just the leading rusher overall in the Indoor Football League. Can Ricky Wyatt, that defensive line, can they shut them down? On the other side, Guy Thomas, another defensive lineman for the Pirates, 7.5 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1 sack. Same thing. Can you put pressure on Sam Castronova? We know San Antonio runs the ball, just not as effectively as they do passing. Can the defensive line, can Calvin Bundage, can I'm blanking on that. Well, Julius Turner we'll talk about in a second, but can the rest of that defensive line step up and really just attack Castronova, attack that rushing game, and really kind of shut down the passing game too and make them more one-dimensional in the running game, as we hope. So that being said, this is the first matchup between the two teams. Obviously, San Antonio still in their first year. It doesn't feel like that after 14 weeks, but yeah, still in their first year. This will be the first matchup. Pirates are favored by 7. Money line is juiced to Massachusetts at home. They're really good at home. An over-under 89.5 for the total points. So, like I alluded to, let's go check out the injury report. Let's go check out the roster, bets, all of that stuff. We'll move on with the previews. All right, injury report popping up. And if you guys didn't watch the Jacksonville and Green Bay preview, I am putting the dates for when the player was listed on the IFL transactions page, when they got put on short-term injured reserve. So that just kind of tells you where, like, how long they've been injured and kind of chronologically of, hey, who should be coming off of the report, who just got put on, things along those lines. So season injured reserve stays the same for the Gunslingers. Short-term injured reserve stays the same. For Massachusetts, they do get 2 people off of short-term injured reserve. They've got Hassan Beydoun, and I forgot the other guy that they did. We'll talk about that in the 25-man roster because my brain is mush. Added, though, has been Julius Turner and Isaac Zico, so they are out for a minimum of 3 to 6 weeks. So we'll see if they get put back on, ramping up for the playoffs when the time comes. Carrington and Daniel still stay on there. McMillan and Mbai are still on there for the season and the UFL exempt list. So let's go take a look at those rosters, bets. We'll move on. All right, 25-man roster. Nothing changes for San Antonio. Now, I did these rosters Friday at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, that time frame before I leave work. So anything could have changed between then and now. IFL transactions page has not really been updating as much as I would like. It's no knock on them. They have a job to do. I just follow it. So here we go. Nothing changes on San Antonio. As we said, players come off for Massachusetts. Hassan Beydoun will probably see his first action of the year with Isaac Zico being out. Offensive line for the Pirates, same thing. Running back skill positions and everything along those lines. Sam Montgomery, I believe, is the one I was screwing up on. I believe he is off the injured report. Correct me if I'm wrong. But you will probably see him, Guy Thomas, Israel Antwine. You'll probably see those guys starting on the defensive line. Bundage will probably be your linebacker. And then they have signed CJ Holmes, who I believe was with San Antonio to start the season. He got cut. He is now signed with Massachusetts. I don't know if that's more of a leverage play to be like, hey, what can we get from you? What information, schemes, what have you, to try and attack the Gunslingers? So we'll see. Other than that, though, Hafford, Elam, Woodby, Fagan. I mean, that should be probably your starters there. Stevens and Sutherland rounded out. Let's go take a look at our bets. Let's go take a look at our prediction. We'll move on with preview number 2. Best bet. I've got San Antonio +7. Adopted San Antonio fan, as always. I think they have a good chance to win this game. I think they have a shot. Even if Massachusetts does win this game, I do think it should be a close game. Massachusetts has really played some close games all season long. They have not necessarily pulled away from their opponents. Look at the first game against Green Bay. They won by 4. They won by 1 against Tulsa. They've lost by 1 against Northern Arizona. They had the game against Jacksonville that was close and low scoring as well. I expect this game to probably be another close game. So with that being said, I do think San Antonio has a chance to close the spread, have a chance for an upset. I got him +7. Let's go take a look at our prediction. We'll move on. Prediction time, 48-45. Really, I could see Massachusetts winning at home. They are very good at home. They just do not lose at home. But from what I've seen from Massachusetts lately, it just seems a little off the rails. Not bad, like their season's done, but something about the Pirates is just not clicking. And I think now's a good time if you are the Gunslingers to catch them off guard at home. At home, like Northern Arizona did a couple weeks ago. This could be a chance for an upset. If not, like I said, I can clearly see Massachusetts winning this game. But San Antonio, they're pretty much in playoff mode now. They need to make these games count. They cannot really drop any of these games going forward. We'll see what they can do, but ultimately, I do think the Gunslingers can pull the upset. However, I'm not amazed if Massachusetts does eke out another close win at home. So there we have it, prediction for this game. Let's move on with preview number 2. All right, preview number 2, 7:05 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV, live from the Wells Fargo Arena in Des Moines, Iowa. The 5-5 Quad City Steamwheelers heading west to take on the Iowa Barnstormers, 3-7 on the season, the Battle of I-80. This is going to be a fun game. Iowa improved. The record doesn't show it. They've been playing more competitive, and obviously we'll talk about it in a minute. Daniel Smith coming back. He has not missed a beat. I think that's a little bit more of a spark offensively, kind of knowing the system, but we'll talk about that in a sec. Judd Erickson, Edward Vander, Jared Harrington lead the respective offensive categories and skill positions for the Steamwheelers. I don't know what Quad City is planning on doing with the quarterback position. I do think Erickson is a better fit to start. If they do go back to Mike Irwin, how short of a leash does he have? I would like to see Erickson start all 4 quarters. They've tried it with Irwin the last couple of weeks. He's been either knocked out of the game or played not as well as Erickson has, to the point where you've needed him to come back and win some games or come back and do what he has to do in order to keep a game competitive. Like, I think it was Green Bay, that he had to come in there late in the game. I think he threw for 50 yards or something like that. So game was already out of hand, but what can you do? Defensively, Keyshawn Moore, Jalen Jenkins, and Darian Jackson lead in the defensive statistics for those positions. Iowa, Daniel Smith, Robert Washington, and Darren Wilson for the skill positions on the Barnstormers. Tyler Tate, Ian McBurrow, and Jefferson Fritz for the Barnstormer defensive side. Now, caveat here, we're looking at these stats, and every week I update these stats. The IFL website has taken some stats away from the Barnstormers. At some point, Jefferson Fritz had like 46 or 48 tackles. He's now down to 43. Ian McBurrow had over 40 tackles in the last preview I did a couple weeks ago. And then Robert Washington had over 250 yards or something like that rushing. So I don't know what's going on here. I go by the statistics, but you can never truly trust the statistics in the indoor football league. You can, but you can't, I mean, it's not professional. Let's call a spade. Regardless, those are the stats I'm rolling with. They just have to go through it. Players to watch for both sides. Edward Vander, you need to get him going. There's been a lot of talk online about what is this offensive identity. I know I've talked about that before. I think Edward Vander is your identity. Get him going. 78 yards, 18 rushes, 3 touchdowns. If you can get him going, it opens up the passing game. It opens up spots for Karan Ashley. It opens up spots for Kevon Rudd. It opens up spots for Edward Vander in the passing game. Now, granted, he didn't do that well against Frisco, but he has played a good role in the passing game in the past. Defensively, Darian Jackson, 7 tackles, 1 for a loss against Frisco. Frisco's defense, they're good. They're all right. I know Iowa is right around that realm, maybe a little bit worse off statistically. So the question becomes, what does Iowa do? This is still a mystery team to me. How good is this defense of Quad City? Does Darian Jackson and that secondary, Malik Duncan, I'm blanking on his name, Trey Smith, what have you, are they going to be able to take this wide receiving core down? We'll see. Player to watch for Iowa, Daniel Smith, 18 of 26, 179 yards, 5 touchdowns. We'll not talk about his rushing, but he played really well with that win against Sioux Falls. What can he do as kind of an encore performance? For me, it's going to come down to, can he sling it out to those wide receivers? Can he keep the Quad City defense on their toes? And can he do enough to escape pressure from Keyshawn Moore? Can he do enough to escape pressure from Jalen Swan and that defensive line? They kind of have a raw linebacker with Jalen Jenkins. Can they exploit him? Can they exploit that defensive secondary? Can they put up points? Not to say that they can't, but obviously you have to score more points than the opposition. So what can we do? Defensively, Christopher Oakley, 6 tackles, 1 for a loss and 1 sack. Again, if we're talking Edward Vander for the Quad City, you got to have someone to neutralize him. Christopher Oakley had a really good game. That defensive line and even Ian McBurrow from the linebacker position got to put pressure. They've got to make sure that Edward Vander is kind of neutralized, because when you do that, Quad City's offense kind of stagnates. So if you are able to stop Vander early and often and not get him going for 78 yards, I think you have a chance to really at least lose close, but really have a chance to pull an upset. Speaking of losing close, series history, we're tied at 5. Quad City game-winning field goal week 10 is their last meeting. Kyle Kaplan, special teams player of the week that week. He hit a lot of field goals. He hit the game winner. There you go. Quad City favored by 1 on the road. Moneyline barely juiced to them. Over-under of 100 points. Let's go check out the rest of the preview. All right, injury report. Nothing for Quad City. They still have Sherrod Page, Easton Bianchi, and Sonny Lane was put on there last week. For Iowa, just on the season injured reserve, they've added Kyle King. Obviously, the reason for Daniel Smith to come in. But they have taken 2 players off of their short-term injured reserve. That should bode well for the Barnstormers as they get fully healthy, or as close to fully healthy as they can get right now. So not a lot to talk about injury-wise. Let's go take a look at the rosters, and we'll move on. All right, 25-man roster, Quad City, away team. Not a lot. Not a lot has changed, if anything. Looking at the offensive side first, as we do. Question, like I said in the preview part, who starts at quarterback? I fully want Erickson. We'll see what Coach Ross does. Everything should stay the same for them offensively. Defensively, I think everything still stays the same with them as well. We probably have Owens, Swan, and Moore on the defensive line, Jenkins on the linebacker, and then probably Kevin Moore, Duncan, Jackson, and Trey Smith for the secondary. On the Iowa side, Daniel Smith is probably your presumed starter. Brandon Alt will be your backup. Offensive line, they do get Christopher Strotter back. And then just a quick touch on that, Chuck Manning on the defensive line. Those are your 2 players that are off the injured reserve for the Barnstormers. Offensively for Iowa, probably more of the same. Keyshawn Taylor, Darren Wilson. We'll see if Keon Williams plays, if CJ Tate plays. We'll see what gets in. If Vaughn Van Dam gets in for the kick return, they have a little bit of wiggle room with the wide receiving room. Defensively, probably Tyler Tate, Oakley, Randall. We'll see if Akeem Smith or Chuck Manning gets the start, if Manning gets in after being injured. Ian McBurrow for linebacker. And then a little bit of wiggle room for the secondary. You probably have Owens, Fritz, France, and Washington being your presumed starters there. Kaplan and Rui are your kickers. Let's move on with the bets. All right, best bet, Quad City -1. And it's not a pick 'em because the odds are a little bit worse. So I've got -110 compared to -115. I do think Quad City can win this game. There's just something about Quad City. If everything they put out right, if they run Vander, if they start Erickson, and they really get that offense going, there is an opportunity for this team to win. Now, they did battle close against Iowa back in week 10. That was about a month ago. They've gotten some lumps with Green Bay. They've won close against Frisco, and I'm hoping that upset can boost their confidence a little bit more. On the Iowa side, I do see a possibility of them upsetting Quad City. They are at home, if you want to call it an upset. Iowa definitely needs this one in order to stay in the playoff race. Now, they won't be the 1 seed, but they have an opportunity to drop Quad City to 5-6, and Iowa can move up to 4-7 and really put pressure. So I do have Quad City. It's not desperation, but I do think that they can win this game, and then depending on what happens with the Massachusetts game, can really pull even with the Pirates for that 3rd seed. So that being said, it kind of gives away what I think is going to be my prediction. We'll go touch on that. We'll move on with preview number 3. All right, prediction 45-41. It's another close game. Again, like I just said, I don't think I'm shocked one bit if Iowa does pull the upset. Quad City has just been an enigma of a team. Sometimes they look really good, i.e. Frisco. Sometimes they look really bad, i.e. Green Bay. And it's just like there's something about Quad City where it's just like they look really, really good and then tail. And then they look good, tail. It's just something about the Steamwheelers. Is this going to be the game where they just fall? Is this the game where Iowa has played a lot of close games themselves as well. I always reference the Arizona game where they lost by 2. I always reference, even the game-winning field goal where they lost by 2 against Quad City. This team is close. The 3-7 record doesn't represent what this team is, but they are 3-7. They just cannot finish these games. In my opinion, I think this is just another one of those. Quad City comes back a little bit late, 45-41. I think the Steamwheelers take control there at the end. Iowa just ends up running out of gas. That's just my opinion on it. We'll see if it comes to fruition. That being said, let's go move on with preview number 3. All right, preview number 3, 7:05 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV, live from the Rio Rancho Event Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. The 7-3 Vegas Nighthawks taking on the 1-9 Duke City Gladiators. I don't know what to make of this game. I'll be brutally honest with you. It's just one of those games. Let's move on to the statistical leaders. Jerome Johnson still leading rushing and passing for the Nighthawks. I don't know if he's going to start. Quentin Randolph for the wide receiving category, and then Gabe McCoy, Mikel Calhoun, and Bryce Hampton round out the defensive side for Vegas. On the Duke City side, Javin Kilgo, Jeff Carr, and Journey Sloan for the offensive side, and Tamar Hart, Jason Serta, and Aaron Jackson are your statistical leaders on the defensive side. Now, question becomes here, what is Vegas going to do? You have lost 3 in a row. You have questions at quarterback. Not to say Duke City doesn't. We'll touch on them in a sec. But do you ride Jorge Reyna? Do you ride Jerome Johnson? This team can put up points. They've done it. They just have not won the games when it has mattered. And that's been the last 3 weeks. You have tried to set yourself up. You're still in position for a playoff spot. But right now, breathing down your neck is the Arizona Rattlers. You have been jumped by the Northern Arizona Wranglers just based on conference win percentage. You were sitting at 3rd. Below Arizona are a San Diego team ready to jump you. Is a team in San Antonio hoping to get into the playoffs in their first year. What can this team do? Is this a get-right game for them? I'm not sure. Talk about it. Duke City looks a little improved. They do have a quarterback who I think should start, and that is Hassan Rogers. Javin Kilgo has been all right, but that 14 touchdown to 9 interception ratio, he has been, let's just be honest. He has been jerked around this team. But he has been just screwed around by this team of, are you going to start? Are you not going to start? You've played a little bit, and then we benched you for Hassan Rogers last week. I'm not saying that he needs to be pissed off. I don't know what's in his head or what's going on, but that's not me to speculate. Whoever gets the start, whether it's Kilgo or Rogers, I think either side needs to have a short leash if Vegas is going to come out guns a-blazing, and I think they will. They are very aggressive when it comes to their, deep passes, and they do run the ball. Jorge Reyna has proven he can run the ball as well. It's not like they've changed their scheme from Johnson to Reyna. So regardless of who Duke City starts, it does come down to those skill positions as well for the Gladiators too. You need those guys to step up. They've kind of gone through, quite a few guys when it comes to that. So players to watch for Vegas, Caleb Hawley, 6 catches, 66 yards, 3 touchdowns. Not a lot running the ball. He's a receiver. You need him. You need Randolph to step up. It's Duke City's defense is serviceable. As we've said all season, their defense is serviceable, but I think there's too many stars on the wide receiving core for Vegas that Duke City just cannot compete with. Mikel Calhoun, defensively, 3 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 sack. Regardless of who Duke City starts, Mikel Calhoun, he has got to destroy whoever is in the backfield. He tried to destroy Lorenzo Brown last week. He had a couple of big hits on him and an overtime too, where it just looked like, I think there was one that was a penalty too. But yeah, he's got to do what he has to do in order to make Duke City uncomfortable. For the Duke City side, Tamarian Terry, 6 catches, 136 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's got to go. He has got to do what he just did last week. He's got to replicate that if you want to put any pressure on Vegas in hopes of an upset. Jason Serta defensively, 5.5 tackles, 1 for a loss, 1 pass breakup. We'll talk about him because while I have him here, he is wound up on the injury report. So while I do like his stats from last week, he is a player to watch when it comes to the injury report. I'm sure Tamar Hart will probably pick up that slack when it comes to the defensive side on the linebacking position. So look for Tamar Hart instead of Jason Serta, since Serta is going to be injured for a couple of weeks. Series history, we're tied at 2. Vegas winning in week 7, 42-27. They are favored by 9 points. Moneyline heavily favoring the Nighthawks, and an over-under of 94.5. So that being said, let's go take a look at the rest of the preview and see if there's any other information we can gather. All right, injury report. Only addition for Vegas, Antonio Wimbush has just been put on the injured reserve list, so Tareen Taylor will probably get a heavy dose of the running game. As for Duke City, added to the injury report, Joe Mancuso and Jason Serta. So like I said, Tamar Hart probably going to start in that linebacker role. And then you will probably see taken off the injury reserve list for Duke City is Greg Dent. So add another wide receiver to the list of a growing wide receiver room for the Gladiators. So not a lot to report there. Let's go take a look at the rosters and see what we can do. All right, 25-man rosters for Vegas. Nothing changes offensively minus Antonio Wimbush and Tareen Taylor. Defensively, they have signed Rick DeBreu and Jaquan Amos. We'll see if they get into the games on the D-line and the defensive back positions. We'll see. I mean, they've kind of suited up 4 guys most of the time on that D-line, whether it's McCoy, Jackson, Hernandez, and Autry. We'll see if any of those guys just get the night off. Defensive backs, they normally run with those same 5, so we'll see if Amos takes a position from any of those. Other than that, nothing really changes for Vegas. On the Duke City side, offensively, the same offensive line will probably go. Wide receivers, curious to see who they start, who they kind of have inactive. Sloan, Terry, does Dent get in there? Does he play defensive back? We'll see. Daniel Kroll, Devonair Conliffe will probably get in there as well. Jeff Carr, and they did sign Jordan Byrd. So that was one of their big signings of the week. We'll see if he gets any action. We'll see if he takes over from Jeff Carr's spot. We'll find out. Again, quarterback-wise, we'll see if Hassan Rogers or Javin Kilgo gets the start, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Defensively, I forgot about Jamil Williams, linebacker position, so he'll probably get the start linebacker-wise because they're pretty thin on defensive line. Hart will probably start, Sutton, and then Warren Thomas or Roderick Perry, whoever gets your nose tackle position. Defensive backs, probably the same suspects. We'll see if any of one of those guys is your depth position. I think Craig Holmes is kind of your special teams guy in that realm. So there you go. Rosters for both teams. Let's go check out our bet. We'll go check out our prediction. Move on with preview number 4. Best bet, under 98.5. Now, this could come back to bite me in the ass. I just do not know what Duke City's offense is capable of. I am almost teetering on going over, but you need both of these teams to roughly score 50 points. I just have a hard time believing both teams will score 50 points, or one team scores 60 and the other team scores 40. I've got to go under just by those standards. That being said, it'll probably be like a 55-54 game or something like that. I know it. I just know it deep down. I should take the over, but there's just something about this. The under has hit kind of well, and including their last matchup, 42-27, I believe was that score. So is it more of the same? I'm not sure. I just don't know who's starting at quarterback. If it's Rodgers and it's, Jerome Johnson or something, maybe the running games get going for both of them and they waste some clock. But again, both teams are very, very well equipped to do some deep shots, whether it's to Tamarian Terry or to Quentin Randolph or Caleb Hawley. These guys can score in an instant. So the over looks good. I just have to take the under. It could be close. We could be sweating this one out, but under 98.5 is my bet. Prediction time, 50-42. Like I said, I do think these teams can score points. think they'll go kind of right up against that 98.5. I think Vegas just has a little bit more firepower. There's just something about Vegas that I think they get right. They move to 8-3. They get the monkey off their back, and they can really kind of settle in for a playoff spot with 6 weeks left in the season. So Duke City has an opportunity here to pull an upset. I'm not going to lie, I will be shocked if Vegas loses to a one-win team, mainly in the fact that they've already lost to a winless team in Tucson just not that long prior. Actually, Tucson had the one win, never mind. They lose to another one-win team. It would kind of shock me. I think Vegas is the better team, but I do think Duke City, sneaky, could pull an upset. It would shock me. It would. I do think Vegas is better. They're more well-equipped. I think I don't know if they're pissed off. I don't know if they're angry, but 3 straight losses cannot be sitting well with them. I think they want to turn the tables. I think they want to get this victory on the road. Move to 8-3, looks a little bit better on your record, and really kind of put pressure on Northern Arizona and the other couple of teams down below in order for them to really vie for a playoff spot. So there we go. Let's move on with preview number 4. All right, preview number 4. 7:05 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV, live from the BOK Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The 3-7 Sioux Falls Storm travel south to take on the 3-8 Tulsa Oilers. Both these teams had kind of higher expectations going into this season, and at least one of them is going to get win number 4 on the year tonight. We'll see who it is. Taking a look at our statistical leaders, Lorenzo Brown leading in the rushing and passing categories. Carlos Thompson takes over in the wide receiving realm. Claude Davis, thinking Carlos Thompson. Claude Davis, Amin Black, and Elijah Reed lead the statistical leaders defensively. For Tulsa, Andre Sale, Gerard Ware, Alexis Rosario lead for the offensive side. Noah Lyles, Jordan Jones, and Trey Harvey lead defensively for the Oilers. Question is for both of these teams, what do we expect? For Tulsa, we'll start with them because their question is a little easier. Can you get off the schneid? Can you win a game? You have lost 6 in a row. You were looking good to start the season. 3-2 winning record. You looked like you were world beaters. You looked like you were in a playoff position, and you have fallen completely off the wagon. Now, sources, whatever, there have been some internal struggles. Not going to get into it, but there's been some issues for the team behind the scenes. Can they take care of what needs to be taken care of? We're still playing football at the end of the day. That's what I want to talk about. I don't care what goes on behind the scenes. That being said, it does leak in, so of course there are issues. Can you get it right? You are at home. You have an opportunity to win this game, move to 4-8, and if Quad City beats Iowa, you have a chance to be that 5th seed, hoping for any sort of miracle to jump into that 4th spot in order to move into a playoff position. Likewise, for Sioux Falls, whoever wins this game is not most likely, but has an opportunity to move into that 4th seed, barring an Iowa loss. Sioux Falls has looked good. They're kind of in that Iowa realm where they have lost games fairly close, games that they should have won, i.e. Iowa last week. They've lost games against Quad City. They've had just a couple of losses that could have been wins. Their record doesn't dictate that they should be 3-7, but here we are. They're not winning close. They're letting games slip away from them, but they did win last week against Vegas in overtime. So hopefully carrying that momentum on the road this week could bode well for the Sioux Falls Storm. Tulsa, they lost a heartbreaker against Jacksonville. Are they pissed off? Do they want to come out and show their fans at home, hey, we are better than what we say we are. We need to win this game. We'll find out. Players to watch, Carlos Thompson, 5 catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown against Vegas last week. You need more from him. I know I say that every single week about this wide receiving core. It's just what I expect from Sioux Falls. I expect this team to be a defensive prowess. I expect this team to be really good offensively, and it's not this season. I know I need to taper my expectations, but I'm just dreaming of the Sioux Falls of old all this season. I had lofty expectations for them. Obviously, they have fallen short. For Thompson and company, he needs to make more plays. He needs to go 5 catches, 66 yards again this week. I'm not expecting like a 10 catch, 150 yard performance. No, just something like this. Steady Eddie. Can you keep this momentum going? You had a good game against Vegas. That opens up opportunities for Kentrez Bell. It opens up opportunities for Lorenzo Thompson. It opens up opportunities for Drayshawn Hudson. So hopefully you can do more of the same. Defensively, Claude Davis, 4.5 tackles, 3 for a loss, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 pass breakup. Father Time's not catching up to this guy. He has looked very, very good this season. You need to wreck Andre Sale. And I'm not saying like injure or do anything like that. Just completely make him uncomfortable. Jacksonville didn't necessarily do that, but in the times that Tulsa has been losing these games, Andre Sale has not looked comfortable. It has been from pass rush. It has been from pressure. It has been just making sure he stays in that pocket and you just put pressure on him. You do not give him any time. You rush his throws. He will throw it behind the receivers. He will throw it out of the end zone too far. You need to do more of the same. Player to watch for Tulsa, Alexis Rosario, 83 yards, 9 catches, 1 touchdown, just the 1 rush. Again, another great performance from him. Andre Sale needs to look his way quite a bit. Gerard Ware is there to help in the running game, which opened up the passing game for Alexis Rosario and Jonathan Nance, Josh Crockett, what have you. Rosario needs to pop off again. You want a chance to win, you get the ball in his hands, you do it early and often. I don't expect 9 catches, 83 yards, just like Carlos Thompson, but hey, a moderate stat line, 4 or 5 catches, 70 yards, whatever the case could be. Maybe he gets 2 or 3 touchdowns, I'm not sure, but if you're able to feed him the ball, it means you're doing something right. Defensively, Jordan Jones, 9 tackles. Not the best stat line, obviously, but 9 tackles is nothing to sneeze at. Clearly getting pressure, clearly tackling when he needs to. Lorenzo Brown, again, father time. Can you get after him? Can you force him out of the pocket, rush his throws? We know Brown's going to run. We know they're going to run with Denley, Keyshawn Williams. Can you stop them for losses or no gains? We'll see. Tulsa does lead the series history 2-1, with the last game being week 5 at Sioux Falls. Tulsa won 56-40. So one of their 3 wins on the season has already been to Sioux Falls. Can the Storm exact revenge? We'll find out. Storm are favored by 1.5 with the money line kind of juiced to them. It's pretty decent money line. And then an over-under of 86.5. Let's go check out the rest of the preview, see what else we can figure out. Quick and easy injury report. All right, so with nothing to add to the injury report, take a look at the 25-man rosters. I don't see anything that dictates any further signings, any further releases or anything along those lines. At the Storm side, offensively, they have given 75 to Kenneth Williams, so he has a number. Everything should stay the same offensively. Defensively, you'll probably be seeing the same cast of characters. For Tulsa, same thing. DeMarcus Adams, number 1. He did play last week. Offensive line will probably stay the same. Defensive line, Deshaun Cooper came up with number 6. Other than that, everything stays the same. Quick and easy. Injury report had nothing. Rosters have nothing. We're just moving on. All right. Best bet. Money line, Sioux Falls. I am in a prove it to me mode for Tulsa. I'm not going to bet Tulsa. I'm not going to bet over under. I'm not going to bet a spread until they prove it otherwise, because I have literally no faith in any Tulsa Oilers games. But that spread is just a little weird to me. You know, it should be a close game. Probably, maybe. I don't know. My gut says otherwise. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I do think the Storm do get the win. I think they're playing better football. I'm hoping that win against Vegas last week does kind of give them a little jolt, a little bit of momentum. And yes, they have played some close games where they have lost. Again, overtime to Quad City, close loss to Iowa, whatever the case could be. But for the Storm, if this win against Tulsa doesn't give them momentum going into the playoff, hopefully it gives them enough momentum thinking about next season. We'll see. Obviously, a lot of things have to break their way in order for them to get any sort of playoff spot. But for the Storm, I do think they do get this victory. So obviously you know where that's going to lead with our prediction. Let's go take a look at that. We'll move on with preview number 5. All right, prediction time, 48-40. Like I said, I do think Sioux Falls does win this game. I think they're just a little bit better. That's not to say that Tulsa doesn't put up points. I do think they put up points. I do think it is a close game. I'm not sold on Tulsa just yet. Now, Sioux Falls defensively, they have given up points. Obviously, to Iowa recently, they gave up 40 against Vegas last week. Granted, they needed overtime to win the game, but they have given up points damn near every week. It's not like their defense is the best in the league. It's not the worst, but it's kind of below average this year, and it's obviously telling in their record. Tulsa, on the other hand, again, they've lost 6 in a row. Some of those games, like the game against Massachusetts, that they were kind of winning that game, and they let it kind of slip away from them. There are just some mistakes, some mental stuff that they need to get over. I am not shocked if Tulsa does win this game. I take it back. There'll be a little bit of shock just because they've been trending downward. What is the game that, gives them another win? Is it this one? Is it one further down the road? I'm not sure. But is this the start of the championship DVD? No. For Tulsa, if they do win this game, I don't think it's a springboard at all. I think it's just something to kind of stop the bleeding, maybe a little bit of a Band-Aid, and a little bit of a sigh of relief to be like, hey, we've lost 6 in a row. Here we are to get over the hump. Let's focus on the next game. For Sioux Falls, I'm not saying they're out of the playoff hunt. They are very, very close. This loss will hurt them. I think this is an elimination game for any of these teams, obviously. And really, even if you win this game, you're still pretty much out of it. But I think Sioux Falls has a little bit more to play for. Both teams are desperate. I think Sioux Falls just has a little bit momentum. So let's move on with preview number 5. All right, preview number 5. 8:05 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV, live from the Tucson Arena in Tucson, Arizona. The 8-3 Frisco Fighters traveling west to Arizona to take on the 2-8 Tucson Sugar Skulls. Now, question becomes, how good is Tucson? That's obviously one of the main questions. How good is Tucson? Do they even have a chance in this one? Let's talk about it. TJ Edwards leading in rushing and passing for the Fighters. Cole Blackman leads in the wide receiver category. Charles Williams, Royce C., and Ethan Castleberry round out the defensive positions for Frisco. On the Tucson side, Zach Reeder, Mike Jones, and Mike Kerrigan offensively for the Sugar Skulls. And then Braden Utley, Jaquez Jackson, and Robert Sheffield are your leading defensive statistical people on the Sugar Skull side. Tucson only scored 12 points last week. What can we expect from them this week? I'm not sure. There's just been so much roster turnover from this team week to week, just plugging in any piece to the puzzle. Yes, they've had a couple of guys that have stayed since game 1, but few and far between. This team is just not good. I don't like to say that very often. Obviously, you're here for a reason. You're good enough to start in this league. Now, I understand people will be in the NFL and CFL. I don't care. You're good enough to start in this league, which means you're better than people that have tried out or better than people that have been released or whatever. You're still kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And right now, Tucson is just doing that, in my opinion, damn near every week. I mean, there's just something about it. They're going to score more than 12 points this game. Is it going to be enough to win them the game? I'm not sure. On the Frisco side, are you just going to run the ball? How often and early do you throw it deep? Do you test that secondary? I'm not sure. Players to watch, Cole Blackman, 5 catches, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. Again, how often do you throw it deep? He was there against Quad City. Yes, they lost the game, but Blackman did did get a couple of catches that were thrown pretty deep to him. 2 touchdowns. He was kind of lighting it up. It's not like he's the only one. They do have Devin McCoy. I don't know if they'll bring in Faison McClurge. I'm not sure if Lionel McConnell played both ways last week. Does he see some more action? I'm not sure. But yeah, we'll see. We know Frisco only throws it maybe 15 times a game, but some of those are 50-yard bombs. So we'll see what happens. Royce C. defensively, 8.5 tackles, half a tackle for a loss. Zach Reeder started his first game last week. He's got a week under his belt of practice and things along those lines. Is it enough? We'll see. Royce C. and that defensive line need to get after him to prove, hey, that was a fluke. No, you stay back down on the ground. Zach Reeder has an opportunity to correct it. So, leading me into him, Zach Reeder, player to watch for Tucson, 11 of 22, 80 yards, 1 touchdown, 8 rushes, 32 yards, no touchdowns there. Now, I put him here as a player to watch just because this offense has been pretty inept. He is going to be the leader. Now, with him, he needs to be able to facilitate. I'm not asking him to go out there and throw for 300 yards and have a Sam Castronova-esque game. Cool if he does, but can you facilitate? Can you get proper handoffs to Devontae Sapp-Lynch or Mike Jones? Can you take off and read that defensive end? Can you take off and do what you need to do or roll out of the pocket, find your guys open? Can you throw the ball into the flats or dump off or do whatever you need to do? And I know that's on him. It's also on the play calling and the coaches and stuff to put a game plan around him to succeed. So no blame necessarily on Zach Reeder. At the same time, there is a little bit of blame. He's got to be able to make the plays work when they are called. It's not me talking or doing anything like that. It's the name of the game. Make plays, score more points, you win. Defensively, Jaquez Jackson, 6.5 tackles, 1.5 tackles for a loss. Again, we know that Frisco runs the ball. You've got to be able to be that quarterback on the defensive side. Jaquez Jackson needs to read TJ Edwards. We know he's going to run. We know we're going to hand off to, well, there's a new guy in the mix. We'll talk about him in a second. Old face. We know he's going to hand off to Jimmy Smith, Martez Carter, third guy, and he's going to take off and run. And that's not counting any jet sweeps to Cole Blackman or Lionel McConnell or whoever. So we'll see what goes on. But Jaquez Jackson needs to be the quarterback of the defense and really facilitate on that side of the ball to be like, hey, they're running this way. They're up the middle. We got to stop them for no gain for a loss. And yeah, the secondary does come into play there too, but that's what we see. Frisco leads the series 1-0. They've only met one time, and it was 2 years ago, 56-34. Fighters won at Frisco, so returning the favor at Tucson this year. Fighters are favored by almost 2 touchdowns, locked money line, over-under of 91 points. Let's go take a look at the rest of the preview. We'll move on. All right. Injury report, only one name added, Richard Ramirez, which... You just go by Rich. I mean, come on, man. Richard Ramirez? I mean, come on. Anyway, Spencer Tiers has been taken off of the injured report for Frisco, so that adds another wide receiver into the mix. Makes me think Lionel McConnell is going to play strictly defensive back. For Tucson, nothing changes. The same guys have been on the injured report, so there you go. Let's go take a look at the rosters and move on. All right, 25-man rosters for Frisco. Offensively, welcome back, Justin Rankin. He's bounced around the indoor football league a little bit. He is signed with Frisco. I mean, he's been there before. He is listed as a running back wide receiver, so we'll see what he does. I'm expecting him to probably play a little bit of a return man role as well. That's not to say that Lionel McConnell won't be there. I'm sure he'll probably get a good majority of the returns, but we'll see what Rankin does. I mean, I'm sure he'll probably play some running back and split out wide and do some empty sets, but we'll see. Edwards is your presumed starter. Offensive line, nothing changes. Obviously, Spencer Tiers is back. I talked about that in the injury report. Defensively, they have signed Joshua Jackson. A little bit of depth on that defensive line as they've needed. They can't just keep going to 3 guys. It took a toll. I can't remember. Solomon Wise has been hurt a little bit, like not hurt as an out for games, but dinged up. He's had to come off for a couple of plays. Jacarius Smith has kind of been that way too. Linebacker Royce C., presumed starter. And then defensive backs, they've signed Ike Adigwu. He did play last week. And then, like I said, Lionel McConnell will probably shift back strictly to defensive back role. We'll see what happens. But a little bit of depth there on the defensive secondary for Frisco. For Tucson, they have traded for Quincy Patterson. He is kind of your goal line package quarterback. I don't know if he's going to start. You know, he does run the ball. I'm not sure how well he passes. I've never really seen him pass when he was with Massachusetts, but does Zach Reeder get the start? Did he impress? Did he, not impress last week? I don't know. I'm fully under the assumption that Zach Reeder is going to start, but not amazed if Quincy Patterson does. Offensively, for the rest of the Sugar Skulls, I didn't mention this last week, but they did trade for Tyron Laughinghouse and Laquiviante Gonzalez from Duke City. And, I don't think anything really changes from the offensive standpoint. Defensively, nothing changes really in that realm either. So the defensive side will kind of, go along there. Now, they did get rid of Fatinos as their kicker. They have signed Josh Winnett. So maybe just a little bit of kicker woes based on what he did last week. So maybe a little bit of a fresh start there for Tucson. We'll see what happens. But there's our roster. We'll move on with our bets and our predictions, and we'll move on with the final preview. All right, kind of like Tulsa, I don't trust Tucson as far as I can throw them. Minus 13.5 for Frisco. I just think they're going to take control of the game. That being said, if Tucson pulls a Vegas 2.0 and wins by a point in overtime, then that's what they do. But I am fully under the assumption that Frisco is just going to run the ball, kill some clock, and really force Tucson to make mental mistakes and do what they have to do in order to put this game away. And I think Frisco is fully going to control the game. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I think Frisco does pull away there. Excuse me. I think they win by 14 points or more. So there we go. Let's go check out our prediction. We'll move on. All right, prediction time, 53-39. I have it right at 14 points. That's assuming that Tucson scores 39. Again, we just don't know what the quarterback position holds. Zach Reeder with another week of practice. Quincy Patterson comes in. Does he take over the role of the starter? We still have wide receivers getting used to the schemes, whether it's Gonzalez, Jatavian Tolles, or Tyron Laughinghouse. Defense should be all right. It just depends on how many points Frisco puts up. I mean, honestly, that's what it hinges on. It's spread for a reason. But I do think Frisco does pull away late. I think Tucson kind of runs out of gas, and there we have it. Could be more than that. It could be less than, I've got 39 points for Tucson. It could be 35. It could be 30. I just do not have any faith in Tucson until they prove it again. And they've done it. They've upset Vegas. They have beaten Duke City. Now, they have lost a lot, though. That being said, they have lost a lot. They have been close in some of the games, but ultimately, I think Frisco, mad after their upset against Quad City, think they want to come back and prove it. They just saw Green Bay clinch a playoff spot. If they win this game, and then there's obviously a couple of losses from the Eastern Conference, they have a chance to clinch a playoff spot as well. So we'll see what happens there. That being said, let's go take a look at the final preview. All right, final preview of Saturday night. We do have one more, but that'll be its own standalone game on Sunday. For right now, though, 8 p.m. Central Time, YouTube and Caffeine TV, live from the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona. The 7-3 Northern Arizona Wranglers taking on the 7-4 Arizona Rattlers in the Snake Pit. One of these teams is going to have 8 wins after this week, presumably the second seed or third seed, depending on how the Vegas game goes. So this has a lot of importance, not just between these two teams. It has a lot of importance on the rest of the teams, San Antonio, San Diego, who will play tomorrow, and everything along those lines. So this could be a game that shapes up the Western Conference. We'll see how it goes, obviously. But let's talk statistics. Josh Jones, MVP candidate? Question mark? I think so. Over 2,100 total yards of offense, 48 total touchdowns, only 3 interceptions on the season. Very good game for him, or season, excuse me. Easily rookie of the year on the offensive side. I don't even know who would be second. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I thought it would be Malik Mitchell. He's refused to report. I don't know. That just kind of makes him a clear-cut number 1 in my opinion. John Maldonado leading in the receiving side. And then defensively, Wallace Cowens, Kalen Hicks, and Malik Saunier for the Wranglers to round out their defensive positions. On the offensive side for Arizona, Dalton Snead, Shannon Brooks, and Glenn Gibbons lead offensively for their skill positions. Savon Lowry, Connor Taylor, and Devontae Merriweather round out the defensive side for the Rattlers. Caveat I have here for Arizona, number 1, Shannon Brooks does lead in the rushing category. He didn't play last week. CJ Odom did. I know he's kind of battled injuries on and off, so we'll see if that was just kind of a maintenance game if he does play this week, or if it is going to be CJ Odom again. Glenn Gibbons, again, he has just been more of a reserve role. He came out guns a-blazing to start this season. Not really much sense. That has given way for Niger Jackson or Corey Reed or Jamal Miles to really step up in those positions, and they've done pretty serviceable. So I don't know if Glenn Gibbons has been that reserve role. He has been there for special teams and things along those lines. I think he's just kind of a veteran presence to help some of these guys out. Granted, he's kind of along the same way with them. Now, who wins this game? I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But I do think it hinges on offense for Northern Arizona. Most notably, Josh Jones. Player to watch for him, 14 of 26, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 rushes, 40 yards, and 3 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against Vegas. They did pull out the victory, but I do think he needs a little bit more this week. Vegas has been kind of reeling. It's not to say that their defense still isn't good, but Arizona starting to hit their stride a little bit here. You need to have another good game. You want to get revenge for what happened in the very first game of the year. I think this is a good litmus test. If you win this game and you're Northern Arizona, sky might be the ceiling for you when it comes to playoff time and everything along those lines. Defensively, Malik Saunier, 9 tackles, 1 for a loss. He's just kind of been around. He does go up to the line of scrimmage. He will get tackles for a loss. He has 4.5 on the season. He's got to be that guy to lock down one of these wide receivers and also make sure that there's no jet sweeps or anything getting across the line of scrimmage. Niger Jackson, Jamal Miles, like I said earlier, Corey Reed, even the running backs, whether it's Odom or Brooks. Saunier has been in the backfield before. He can do it again. Can they stop the running game and even the short passing game? As I know, Arizona does like to throw quick hitches along the sidelines to really take chunks of 4 or 5 yards when they can get it. For the Rattlers, Niger Jackson, 7 receiving yards, should be. 62 yards through the air and no touchdowns. He had a good game against San Diego, although he didn't get into the end zone. For the Rattlers, they need to utilize him. They need to get Jamal Miles and really get the running game going in order to open up the passing game. That's not to say that they can't throw deep, but the secondary of Northern Arizona is pretty stingy. Can you open up the passing game? Can you run the ball and really just work this offense? Like I said, chunk plays, 4 or 5 yards, 6 yards, and really just kind of wear them down in order to do what you did in the first game of the season. Defensively, Dylan Winfrey, 6 tackles, half a tackle for a loss, 1 pick, 1 pass breakup. He was all over the place. Again, can you stop what Northern Arizona does offensively? They don't really run a true running back, as we have seen. They do run their jet sweeps. They do have their motion handoffs when they need to. David Elder kind of works as that slot, scat back style, H-back, whatever you want to call it. And he will take those handoffs and those, jet sweeps along with Maldonado or McCorker. Your goal for that defensive secondary, again, just like Malik Saunier, is to get into that backfield and stop those jet sweeps for no gain. Force Josh Jones to run, force him to throw over you. We'll see if they can shut him down. Arizona leads the series 7-3. Obviously, their last meeting was the very first game this year, 51-40. Rattlers are favored in this one at home. Granted, they have not had a good home record. They're favored by 4.5, money line juice to them, and an over-under of 97.5. So let's go take a look at the rest of the preview, see what else we can gather. All right, injury report for Northern Arizona. Jaleel Mathis Ellis has been put on, along with a new signee, Deshaun Stoudemire. They were just put on this past week. Everything else kind of just stays the same for them. I do believe they have 1 or 2 guys coming off of the short-term injured reserve. For Arizona, nothing changes. Everything is there for short-term injured reserve, and Christopher Martinez on the season side. So let's go take a look at the rosters, and we'll move on. All right, 25-man rosters here. More of the same offensively for Northern Arizona. Don't see anything on the skill positions. Josh Jones still probably going to start. They did sign Dallas Holiday for the offensive line. Maybe it's a little bit more depth. Salter, Simon, and Okiki will probably be your presumed starters, depending on what Holiday does. Defensively, more of the same from them. Probably Cowens, Tremont Lofton, and either Mason Newton or William Martin. I don't know if Desir Davenport will get in. Kalen Hicks at your linebacker. And then your same usual suspects on the defensive secondary side for Northern Arizona. For the Rattlers, I don't think I saw anything change for them. Offensively, you have the same people for the offensive line. Desmond Holmes is there as your depth position. Miles, Reed, Houston, Jackson, probably your presumed starters for the wide receiving core. We'll see who starts at the running back. Snead will probably get the start at quarterback. Symes, Lowry, and then Yates or Voles will probably start the defensive line. I'm not sure what Connor Taylor's doing. If they're just giving him some time off. Travaris Farrell will probably start at linebacker. They've probably given him the start for maybe the remainder of the season. I'm not sure. And then Dobbs, Merriweather, Winfrey, and probably Amari Alexander will start on the secondary side for them. So there's your rosters. Let's go take a look at our bet, our prediction. We'll wrap everything up. All right, best bet. I've got Arizona money line. I just think they're kind of hitting their peak right now. I do think having a game at home, granted they have not been good at home. They've been way better on the road. I think they're 5-1 on the road right now. I think Arizona has an opportunity to really cement themselves into a playoff spot here. Not clinch, right? But to get themselves right there primed for another playoff run after, again, second straight season, maybe a third straight season of them kind of just being the very middle of the pack, lower mid of the pack, and then making that push towards the end of the season to really get back into it and really battle for the second, maybe even first seed, depending on what happens with Bay Area. So I've got them minus 192. Not the best odds, but I do like how they're favored at home, and they've already beaten Northern Arizona without some of the guys that they had, whether it was Dalton Snead or Winfrey or Merriweather or whoever to start the season. You know, they do get those guys back. They do get a little healthier, and then we'll see what Northern Arizona can do on their end. So I got the Rattlers money line. We know what that means for our prediction. Let's go take a look at that. We'll get out of here. All right, prediction 51-49. I have it as a close game. I think it's going to be a nice little back and forth battle. I do think Arizona does pull out the victory overall. Like I said, I've got them money line. I just think they're a little bit of a better team right now, but there's something Northern Arizona-wise that they are just very, very consistent. If they can stay that consistent way and force Arizona to make some turnovers, could be another cursed home game for the Rattlers, but I just don't necessarily see it this week. Stranger things have happened, but I think the Rattlers do pull out this victory and have an opportunity to be the number 2 seed by the end of week 14. Depending on what happens with Vegas. So we'll see. But I got Rattlers winning a close one. Could go either way, but that's just what my gut's telling me. Let's go ahead and wrap everything up, and that's it for the preview. All right, so that is it for the Saturday preview for week 14. I do want to thank you guys for watching the entire thing. If you stuck around for it, or if you just wanted to watch your favorite team, it means a lot. It means I'm doing something right if you want to come and watch it and do all that stuff. So appreciate it, as always. Love you guys for that. I do want to take this minute to say, if you are a Quad City Steamwheeler or a Green Bay Blizzard fan, I am finally making my trip to Mecca. I am going up to the Quad Cities for a belated Father's Day, which, side note, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. It means a lot, you know, being a father myself. Really cool. Hope you guys have a great weekend, but belated Father's Day present from me, or from my wife. We are going up to the Quad Cities next weekend to watch Green Bay take on Quad City in Moline. So if you're a fan of me, fan of this, fan of whatever, and fan of Quad City or Green Bay, I hope to see you guys there. If you want to reach out and say hi or do whatever, perfectly fine. No issue with that. I do look forward to seeing anyone and everyone in the Quad Cities, including my family. So with that being said, I'm going to take off here. I'm really excited to, kind of announce that and be like, hey, I'm finally going to an indoor football game for the first time in a decade. Just have never had the time to go anywhere to do it, but here we are. So yeah, that being said, I'm going to take off here, guys. I get ready for kickoff. We got a whole bunch of games tonight. We got one game tomorrow, and we'll move on. Just 6 weeks left in the regular season, and then the playoffs are going to come faster than you know it. Pause. Anyway, taking off here, guys. Again, love and appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff, whatever you guys want to do. Got some other fun announcements to talk about later on. Until then, I'm taking off here, guys. See ya.